live on WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Streaming at WMNHradio.org. You can find WMNH on the TuneIn app, by the way, so you can take us wherever you go on your mobile device. Of course, on Channel 97 Comcast, if you're in Manchester, and on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. It is Thursday, August 2nd, 2018. Jenny is here as well.
Hello, hello.
And the number to call is 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007, anytime in the next couple of hours or a little under.
I'm still working on learning how to write with my right hand, but I need to write today down in history. I have been trying to get you to play reggae for 4 years, and you finally did it.
Well, Shaggy.
Yay! You played reggae, and
sorta.
earlier, you said I was right.
Yes.
So, I have to totally write this down in history.
So that's, well,
This is Unleash History.
I don't like reggae.
I love
generally.
reggae. Reggae is wonderful music.
It grates on me.
It
But
is beautiful music.
Shaggy, though.
Get you going. Get the blood pumping.
So that was actually Shaggy with James Corden from The Late Late Show with James Corden.
I love that
I've played
guy.
that on the show before. But it's a parody of course, Shaggy's hit from the 90s, It Wasn't Me. And I think it was the 90s or early 2000s. I think it was the late 90s. And but it's not, that's not even, I don't think people who really
It's got
are into reggae would consider that true reggae, you know.
Well, no, but
it's not,
for somebody who's been refusing for 4 years, it's a start.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great song parody, but I don't, and I didn't mind the original song. I mean, it was kind of funny.
I've been listening to all kinds of crazy music lately, so you can't,
I don't generally like reggae, but
I love reggae.
It's just,
especially on a beach at night.
A lot of it just kind of sounds the same to me. But I mean,
does not.
But I listen.
You can say that about heavy metal.
I listen to genres of music that I'm sure a lot of people say, "Oh, that stuff all sounds the same to me." So
it does.
It's all
hair metal.
I respect all music. I never. I don't make any judgments. Everyone likes what they like. It just doesn't.
I like everything but country.
Me. Yeah,
I'm not a big country fan. I'm always surprised by how many New Englanders like country. Well, in New Hampshire. I
don't know. Really?
Yeah, New Hampshire's kind of unique that way. I don't know how country music got in there.
I
grew up in Mass and Boston and Randolph and all that area, and we did not play country music.
Yeah, but it's not like it used to be. It's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure it's still more prevalently popular in the South, but honestly, it's big everywhere.
Twang.
It's the biggest. I mean, for a long time, I don't know if it's currently true, but for a long time, it was the biggest selling genre of music in the country.
You had to excuse me. I'm kind of giddy. He's had me traveling so much, I'm not even sure what state I'm in anymore.
Huh?
All your business stuff.
Oh, right. Yes.
I'm tired.
Oh, okay. So we have some news regarding North Korea and Kim Jong-un.
Good news?
Well, he sent a letter to the White House has received a new letter from Kim Jong-un. I must say I'm a bit jealous. You know, we went with my close personal friend Dennis Rodman to visit him. Not that I mean to name drop.
What do you mean
brag.
you haven't heard from him?
Well, he hasn't sent. Kim Jong-un has yet to send me a letter, and
I've been getting text messages.
Well, that's he hasn't texted me.
Really, huh?
No, he didn't really speak much to me when we were there.
I've been getting them almost every day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, apparently he sent...
I guess I had a bigger impression.
I guess so. Well, he sent Trump a letter, and the contents of the letter, this is breaking news, the contents of the letter have been revealed. And according to thehill.com, it's a very, very short letter, and it simply says, "Ha, stupid American, I fool you. Sincerely, Kim Jong-un." So there you go.
Are you serious?
Yes, that's what it says.
That's not an Onion article?
Nope, that's what it says. I'm kidding. No, Trump said it's a very nice letter, so it probably doesn't say anything like that.
Well, I was going to say, they just sent back.
It's probably full of flattery.
You would think, considering the exchange that just took place.
Yes. Yes, they did send back the remains of...
very respectfully.
Yeah, I mean... It's about time. Of course, it means a lot to the families that, of those
It's
those
about
soldiers.
time. It's the first time that we've gotten even close. Never mind, actually got them back.
It may turn out to just be kind of a hollow gesture in the end, because while this is going on, U.S. intelligence says, oh, guess what? They're just rolling right along with their nuclear program, and nothing has changed. Hence the joke about Kim's letter saying, "Ha ha, stupid American, I fool you." But according to Trump, no, it was a nice letter. TheHill.com says Trump has received a new letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un following up on their nuclear summit in Singapore. Trump referred to a nice letter from Kim in a tweet sent early Thursday morning. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders later confirmed the letter was received yesterday.
He tweeted a nice thing?
No, he tweeted that Kim Jong-un sent him a nice letter.
But that means he tweeted a nice thing.
That's one of his BFFs.
Maybe they adjusted his meds.
No. I don't know.
Sorry. I told you I was punchy. I did warn you.
Yes.
I did warn you.
Let's see. Trump tweeted, "Thank you to Chairman Kim Jong-un for keeping your word and starting the process of sending home the remains of our great and beloved missing fallen. I am not at all surprised that you took this kind action. Also, thank you for your nice letter. I look forward to seeing you soon." Sounds like they're going to hang out.
Sounds like the text message I got.
Oh, my goodness. Sanders said in a statement using an acronym for the formal name of North Korea, quote, "The ongoing correspondence between the two leaders is aimed at following up on their meeting in Singapore and advancing the commitments made in the U.S. DPRK joint statement," unquote. Trump and the White House did not reveal the contents of the letter. That'd be funny if my theory was right and they're just trying to put a nice face on it. The president wrote in his tweet, "I look forward to seeing you soon," but Sanders later said that no second meeting is locked in or finalized, but added the White House is open to the possibility. The latest correspondence comes at a pivotal time for Trump's bid to ease tensions with Pyongyang over Kim's nuclear ambitions. Multiple media reports have said North Korea has continued to work on its nuclear and ballistic missile program in the weeks following the June summit, even as Trump has publicly touted examples of how his diplomacy is working.
What is he swallowing?
Huh?
That's what you sounded like you said, swallowing.
No.
Mr. Enunciation.
I'm not sure.
You so sounded like you said swallowing.
I'm not sure what you heard. I don't know. Swallowing what?
The word came out swallowing. It did. It totally did.
Okay. Trump on Twitter thanked Kim for keeping his word. Vice President Pence traveled to Hawaii on Wednesday to receive those remains. The nuclear developments, however, reportedly frustrated Trump, who has made his overtures to North Korea his administration's top foreign policy priority. Meanwhile, so Slate.com has this article that just went up today titled, "Trump now seems fine with letting North Korea keep its nukes." It says here on June 12th, Trump and North Korea leader Kim Jong-un signed a historic agreement. North Korea committed to work with the U.S. to recover. Okay, I'm going to kind of skip down here. Despite some earlier fits and starts, the North Koreans took what appears to be a major step toward fulfilling their part of the bargain by turning over 55 boxes of remains. I'm going to skip down a little bit more here because we know all this already. Now, it says here, now, it's possible you may recall the June 12th agreement a bit differently. You may have thought it had something to do with North Korea agreeing to denuclearize, to give up its nuclear weapons. While no such commitment was in the actual document the leaders signed, Trump has repeatedly implied that was what the two leaders agreed to. But North Korea is not unilaterally disarming and has bristled at being told it should. While one missile engine test site is apparently being dismantled, U.S. officials have said the North Koreans are continuing to produce nuclear fuel and work on new missiles. Trump has sidestepped the problem by touting the lack of missile tests since the summit, saying that there's no rush for full denuclearization, and by blaming China. The return of service members remains, assuming these are genuine, is a meaningful accomplishment, particularly for the families involved. And the optimistic reading of recent news is that ongoing dialogue and confidence-building measures like these can reduce risks and lead to more concrete agreements down the road. North Korea was on the path to becoming a nuclear power before Trump came along, and there's not much he could have done to stop it. Still, it's hard not to read Trump's enthusiastic praise of Kim for this relatively painless concession while weapons work continues and an official statement of acceptance of North Korea as a nuclear state. Well, I mean, they are a nuclear state, right? It's just a matter of hopefully they behave.
There's nukes everywhere. You're never going, it's not going to work. It's like standing in front of a child with a cigarette in your hand going, I better never see you smoking. That's all we're doing. We have nukes everywhere, and we're going, oh, you shouldn't have nukes, even though we have ones that can hit you. I mean, personally, if you lived in one of those countries, wouldn't you think your leader was an idiot to give up the only defensive system that you have to somebody else who has not only what you have, but greater than? From that perspective.
Oh, I still look forward to the day that Amoskeag, the west side, secedes from Manchester, and we become Amoskeag, and we're going to have nukes. It's going to be great.
Well, I thought that was that part of is that like an inside version of New Hampshire exit?
It's just it's Manchexit, but
I need
just
to
the
know
west
if
side.
I got to keep up with my list here. See, I have my Matt Connarton list. I have reggae, and you said I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the ice cream bet. The ice cream bet.
Well,
yes.
all I know is we're going to have nukes because
we're going to have ice cream.
We don't want Manchester to try to invade us.
Huh?
Yes, after we've seceded.
Manchester, we live in
Right, but once we secede...
Lord, you've been hanging around with them conspiracy nut jobs too much.
Once we secede, they might try to invade us to bring us back into Manchester.
Need to take you on a spiritual awakening tour.
So we're going to need nukes to prevent that from happening. And no, we're not giving them up. I mean, we might negotiate.
If anybody ever decides to use nukes, this world is just going to freaking be destroyed. I mean, think about it. It's the worst possible concept ever.
Oh, it is.
And anybody who does it is going to literally ruin more of the world than we've already ruined.
Oh, absolutely. That would be catastrophic.
Exactly. So you got to be a madman to hit the button.
Right.
Or woman.
Right.
I don't care.
I just want to have them. I don't want to use them.
I don't want to have. I would personally, if I had one magical wish, I would just take it all away.
I'd like to just have one, just in case.
No.
Hello to Fred Bonig from the DailyRipple.org who joins us in the Facebook live chat.
Maybe Fred can answer the ice cream bet.
Why?
I don't know.
He lives in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that won't work.
Hello to Jackie Brown, and hello to Christian Cunard, who says hello.
Hey, there's my girl. I love you.
There's also, what was this other thing?
What thing?
North Korea. There was something else about North Korea. You know what? We'll move on from it, but because there's so much going on. But you know,
do you mean what isn't going on in North Korea?
Right.
What I want to hear is, I would love to hear that they've done something to allow North and South, like families that have been separated forever, to have that reconnect.
Oh, yeah.
Of some kind. I mean, I get it's going to be really hard to get them to unify in any sort of way, but to humanize the two countries and allow families to more easily be together again, I think would be amazing.
Yeah. And
for both countries to show that they have some kind of humanity left within them.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're sort of getting along, so...
Which is good. Yeah. It's good that we stopped doing war games over North Korea's head.
We have a call. Perhaps this is Kim Jong-un. That'd be
It
wonderful.
Would be for me.
Oh, probably. Oh. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. Who's this? Hello? Oh, they hung up.
It's the ghost. I'm sorry. I tried to leave her home, but she didn't want to stay.
I thought it was Mrs. Muir.
Mm-mm.
Let's see.
I picked her up in East Africa, and we've just been traveling around together since.
Oh. According to Salon.com, Pope Francis is back in the news. You know, he sure does upset people whenever he speaks. He, with his compassion and empathy and all that, is very upsetting to a lot of Christians. Salon reports Pope Francis declares death penalty unacceptable, and a new effort to refocus the scandal-plagued church. Pope calls for worldwide abolition of death penalty as Catholic Church reels from widening abuse scandal. The abuse scandal, which will not go away. I mean, that's been, I remember when I was a kid hearing about it. Also, too, I don't think there's he's not breaking any new ground, I don't think, with the
I think
death
he is.
with the death penalty thing specifically, because that's always been,
No,
as
it
far
hasn't.
as I know, I think that's always been the position of the Catholic Church.
Not an actual edict. Not an actual edict. And if you want to go back
not
into
sure.
the Catholic Church history, they were one of the greatest committers of the death penalty, convert or die.
I don't know.
The Crusades don't ring a bell? Convert or die.
Yeah, but I'm talking about state-sponsored. I'm talking about like what we do in the United States.
It took them until Pope John Paul II to disavow the Holocaust. It would not surprise me if it took until 2018 for a pope to say specifically and in writing and in formal rule.
No, previous
popes
popes have addressed it.
I think that would have been addressed in the article.
I know that because, well, it may be. I haven't gotten to the article yet, but I just know because I grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic school, and I think at least in my lifetime.
I'm only kidding. I'm sorry.
No, I know. But I think the church is. I think the Catholic Church's position has always been anti-death penalty.
I always find the Catholic Church's positions to be rather contradictory.
Well, it says here
behavior versus words.
After declaring that the death penalty is inadmissible in all cases, Pope Francis has formally added opposition to capital punishment to the Roman Catholic Church's official catechism.
Aha!
Oh.
There it is. Jen's right. Getting another check mark here.
All right, we have a call.
Jen's right.
Maybe this is the Pope. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. Who's this?
An angry American veteran.
An angry American veteran with a familiar voice, but yes.
It's Poppy.
What are you? What are you angry about?
I was wondering if you guys were there.
We're sitting here.
What do you mean?
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hop on over.
I'm just dealing with a veterans agency.
Is that where you are now?
I need to be hypnotized.
Wow.
Do we need to de-stress you?
It was Paul VI in 1964 that issued a papal bull that finally absolved the Jews for deicide, murdering God.
Yeah.
In Christ.
All right, and then it took into the 2000s for the Catholic Church to officially denounce the Holocaust, and now
or to acknowledge,
and now it is formally added to Catholic law that the death penalty is wrong.
I'm in front of the Episcopal Church, and
you're gonna burn.
Puritan, and that's gonna start. It's starting to trigger me.
You're gonna burn.
Oh my!
Oh no, he went. I hope he didn't burn up.
The Episcopal Church triggered him.
Uh-oh.
Fred said in the Facebook live chat, they disemboweled a lot of people before the Holocaust. It was called the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you.
No one expected it, though. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. The damnedest thing. Technically,
he's right.
There was a Monty Python joke, which is unusual for me because I'm not a big Monty Python guy.
Bring out your dad.
It says here, technically, this is only a minor adjustment in Catholic doctrine. The Church has long argued that capital punishment was acceptable only in rare and exceptional circumstances, but the ramifications in terms of the Pope's positioning of the Church on the political and cultural landscape could be far-reaching. Today, the Vatican formally announced that the Church's stance against capital punishment was now absolute, and that henceforward it will teach that execution is never a justifiable punishment for any crimes under any circumstances. The Vatican also said it would work to abolish the death penalty everywhere in the world, a decision that may well pose a particular conundrum for American Catholics. 23 executions occurred in the United States in 2017 alone, according to Amnesty International. I'm surprised that number's that low.
Me too.
I would have thought 23.
But I do have to point out that you just read that I was right yet again, that the Catholic Church actually supported the death penalty in certain circumstances.
In certain circumstances, yes.
So let's see. That's another check mark over.
Although they've always
I'm going to have me a triple Sunday by the time this is over.
Although they've always been broadly against it, but yes, in specific circumstances.
No. You don't get away with that.
No.
You don't get away with that. Go back to the article where it said they said they supported it in specific situations.
Right. That's true.
There is nothing about that says broadly against it.
right?
That is nothing. You are so caught.
No, they
admit
were
it.
against it,
Admit
except
it.
in specific
They were
circumstances.
accepted while they
Yeah.
were for it.
Okay.
That's what you're saying.
Right. Says here, for the 9th consecutive year, the USA remained the only country to carry out executions in the region. The number of executions, 23, and death sentences, 41, in the U.S. slightly increased compared to 2016, but remained within historically low trends of recent years, which is, good news. It is trending downward because more and more states are saying, no, we're not going to do this anymore. For the second year in a row, the second time since 2006, the U.S. did not feature among the top 5 global executioners, with its position in the global ranking dropping from 7th to 8th. The number of U.S. states carrying out executions increased from 5 in 2016 to 8. Oh, that's not good. With Arkansas, Ohio, and Virginia resuming executions after a hiatus. I didn't realize that. 4 states, Idaho, Mississippi, Missouri, and Nebraska, as well as U.S. federal courts, imposed death sentences in 2017 after a hiatus, bringing the number of U.S. states imposing death sentences to 15, 2 more than in 2016. Kansas, North Carolina, and Oregon, which imposed death sentences in 2016, did not do so in 2017. I saw that number 23, and it's lower than I expected. I thought
Much lower.
I thought 23. Texas alone does that many because they're Texas and Florida, they are wildly enthusiastic about the death penalty there, to the point where, frankly, it's a bit creepy.
And the weird thing about it is, I used to be kind of a big supporter of the death penalty until I realized how many people had actually been murdered. There's no other word for it. And they were actually innocent and found out later that they were innocent. So that really, it gets to you that, should we have a system that allows an innocent death? That's amazing. But what really got to me recently is the pharmaceutical industry jumping in and saying, look, you're not using the medications that we create to help people to kill people. And one of those drugs shocked me because it was midazolam. And midazolam is actually a medication that they use when they do myoblations.
Mm-hmm.
So to think a medication that is used to help was being used to kill. And they literally withdrew their medication and said, no, we're not going to sell it to you. We're not going to allow you to use it.
Yeah, a lot of companies
to kill people.
done that.
And it's a very common medication for procedures where people need to be, somewhat sedate, but not really out of it, able to answer questions or things of that nature. And that's what they created that drug to do, to be able to help people while helping the doctors take care of whatever it is.
Well, we're tough on the pharmaceutical industry in a lot of ways, but I'll tell you,
Yes.
One of the positive things, though, that they have done is it is true that part of the reason we've been able to successfully beat back the death penalty in recent years is that, a lot of these drug manufacturers have said, you know what, we are not going to allow anything that we produce to be used in executions anymore, and they've drawn a line in the sand on it, and it's made it very difficult. That's why some of these states have had to go on hiatus with the death penalty because they can't afford the medications anymore because the medications have become so difficult to get. They've become very expensive.
Which brings up an interesting point because a lot of people aren't aware. Some of those states, quite a few of those states that you listed, actually give the convicted person the choice. They can choose, in some states you can choose the firing squad. In some states you can still choose hanging. In some states it's the electric chair or the medications, the lethal injections. But firing squad and hanging are still legal in some states for a convicted person facing the death penalty to actually choose their method of death.
Mm-hmm.
I'd choose shooting. Just
So
like
would
Gary
I.
Gilmore.
So would I. It's over.
I just hope it's
No
for my.
drama. No getting.
I just hope
tied
it's.
down.
They convicted me for a political crime instead of something made up and just tagged on me. So they just do me in rather than let me suffer. Because at Nuremberg, the hangman for Keitel, I think Marshal Keitel, and a lot of the Nazi bigwigs was an American. He's a master sergeant. And part of his brigade was the battalion that, when they took the prisoners, I can't remember the time, but it begins one of the first movie I ever saw in a theater, Battle of the Bulge, where they machine gun U.S. prisoners. They just killed them.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing, but he slackened. He was a professional hangman from the Midwest because you used to do robust capital punishment. Capital punishment's only effective if it's a quick trial and you're quickly executed. But if it's dragged on, there's nothing,
Oh, it costs more money to
now
put
it's
somebody in
ridiculous.
prison with a sentence of death
$300 million in
than it
California.
does to put them in a sentence for life without the chance of parole.
But what he did,
And the way that I've seen them live, oh boy.
some of them, yeah. But to a soldier, you want to be shot because that's honorable. To be hung is like a common criminal. And these were like Prussians, Junkers.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about the pride. But to be hung was humiliating. But he slackened the rope so that it took 20 minutes, I think, for Keitel to die. And the British were all,
Wasn't there
my
one
God.
of them that the gallows was not
Head ducking.
tall enough?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it wasn't tall enough. So when the person dropped, it didn't have the effect it's supposed to have. And it took them a long time to pass.
And you remember these are people that, they had like in your neighborhood, like in Warsaw, your local gallows where they just hang.
I'm not
right
really
up.
feeling any sympathy,
But,
but hey.
But the
call me
British,
crazy.
oh, that's not sporting, chap. But, and
Sporting?
He
It
was.
wasn't sporting to kill children and throw babies against walls either. Oh, I feel so bad for you. Not.
I just.
I guess that's the one area where I'm going to have to say the death penalty I was rather happy about.
Oh yeah.
That smells good. What'd you make?
It's Jamaican.
Oh, you missed it.
Well, you missed the reggae.
You missed the reggae.
Oh.
He played reggae. See?
Well, sort of.
See? Look at the face. I'm not the only one that knows.
Yeah.
I actually have a list going now of
Rasta
the things that you have to write down that have never occurred on Unleashed.
We haven't had a ghost in here from
Oh no, we
East
had
Africa.
a ghost. I brought one in.
Right, we haven't had one from East Africa.
Well,
We've
no,
had
but-
entities.
Yeah.
We're being plagued by the
He
secret
said I
red
was right
Pleiadians.
on air twice.
He did.
Mm.
He did.
It's a
Well.
new Matt Connarton.
Yes.
Maybe
He looks
It
like
is
he's getting
him.
nauseous, doesn't he?
he looks what?
Like he's getting nauseous.
It's very warm in here.
It is.
It is very warm in here.
It's cooler than it was outside.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in front of the equipment. It tends to be hotter over here.
Matt and I were talking, I think a little while ago, last week, about Holocaust denial. David Irving, who started out as a
please not go there.
respectable historian, and how,
I've been having enough
Yeah.
trouble with my stomach lately that
It's-
I really don't need to be nauseated right now.
it's just amazing. And you'd think that
Has a
the
lot to do with
crazy
why
stuff
I
again.
don't want to be on social media right now.
oh,
I mean, when you get up
get
in the
rid
morning,
of your social media.
you get up in the
everybody.
morning and you see somebody posted a swastika on your website,
Oh, that's
your page.
disgusting.
and they're like, wishing you dead because of what you are, what you were born as, and
What
I'm
they
Jewish and I'm
perceive you
proud
to
of it.
be.
I'm Jewish and I'm proud of it.
But I'm saying what they perceive you to be is part of like this worldwide conspiracy.
depends
like
on
you're
who you
getting,
ask.
like you're getting your dividend
They're
check
part of-
every quarter.
They're a part of the globalists, the Bilderbergers,
Yes,
and
you saw
and
that.
You're going to get in the hospital.
He
yeah.
has seen some of this crap on my timeline.
Oh, I've seen it.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, they're in charge of the globalists and the Illuminati, and they're a part of the global conspiracy, and Trump is going to stamp that out. That's why we have to support Trump.
I thought he supported the global. Oh no, wait, he doesn't.
No. Alex Jones is not like the globalists and the Illuminati.
Is that why? Is that why you're getting sued?
Why is he being
You're
sued?
getting sued?
Why am I being sued?
I don't know.
This
I
is
didn't read
Alex
the whole
Jones.
article.
Why am I being
Alex
sued?
Jones was
Let's
being
not talk
sued.
about getting sued. That'll trigger me.
Is that a sore subject for you, Mr. Opwood? Are you one of the globalists?
Yes, because there's certain signs that are
Oh,
mushrooming all
Hoppy.
over town.
Are
What
you
are we gonna do with
are you Illuminati?
I wish. I'm waiting for my dividend check. I mean, but when I said about perceive, it's like, oh, well, you Jews, you're all part of this. What was incredible is some people, we actually know them. I'm not going to say, maybe off air, nice people, anything. They read this stuff, but, I'm not even going to say it, but, like the Rothschilds and stuff. And I'm saying, but you're a Bernie Sanders supporter. Don't you realize he's Jewish? But I don't even go there because I just say, that's ridiculous
Bernie
stuff
Sanders is
that's
a
been around
Alex.
for 170 years.
So
Bernie
Al-
Sanders is a turncoat.
The Ross
so
guy.
Alex,
And he's a globalist.
why are you being pursued legally over InfoWars falsehoods?
All I do is
Entertainment.
All I do is speak the truth, and the globalists are trying to take me down, and they'll never take me down. And I'm Alex Jones, and sometimes I take my shirt off.
Is it possible that you could sort out your problems inside the ring?
I'm gonna have to
Wrestling?
I'm gonna have to call my friend Milo Yiannopoulos about that.
Does he wrestle?
Yes, we wrestle.
Wow.
We
Do you
want
know who's going after you?
We Jello wrestle.
The Sandy Hook families.
Yes.
Me or him?
The Sandy Hook families are wanting to hold to account Alex Jones, a powerful leader
Oh man.
of this online
Let's not
community.
go there.
Will reach a crossroads.
They were my
Lawyers
neighbors.
of Nora Punzer. I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
Is that recent? though? 'Cause
Parents.
I thought
This
that
is
had...
just
Oh,
this is
God,
just
that
a
was
few
horrible.
days ago.
Really?
You
Lawyer,
can't imagine.
yeah.
You can't
That by
imagine.
extension, the families of 8 other victims in the 2012 shooting that killed 20 first graders and 6 adults have a valid defamation claim against Mr. Jones, whose Austin-based InfoWars media operation spread false claims that the shooting was an elaborate hoax.
Oh, because it is. They'll try to prove malice.
The Ponzer hearing in the Bellwether and the 3 cases, including another in Texas and one in Connecticut, filed by the relatives of 9 Sandy Hook victims, is coming. It
It's a
comes
tort,
as the
right.
social media platform Mr. Jones relies upon the spread incendiary claims, irritating efforts to curb him.
I like it when they call me Mr. Jones. It shows me the proper respect.
The days after the Punzer case, in the same courthouse, in a hearing in a separate defamation case against Jones, brought by Marcel Fontaine, I left out a word, who was falsely identified on InfoWars'
Right.
website as a gunman in the Parkland, Florida shooting in February. Mr. Fontaine, who lives in Massachusetts, has never visited Florida. The Pauser family and Mr. Fontaine are being represented by Mark Birkenstock, blah, 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 the law firm based out of Houston.
Oh. Yeah.
He, Mr. Jones, apparently,
Mr. Jones and me.
is trying to have the case dismissed under Texas Citizens Participation Act,
It's only entertainment.
which protects citizens' rights to free speech against plaintiffs who aim to silence them through costly litigation. Mr. Jones is seeking more than $100,000 in court costs from the Ponzer family. Efforts to reach Mr. Jones on his cell phone and through the InfoWars email were unsuccessful. Mark Enoch, his lawyer in the case, did not respond to telephone and email requests for comment.
It's the New World Order out to get me. Fred sent a song to play later. It's the New World Order.
Those were my neighbors.
Oh, really?
It's horror. You have no idea what that's like. Because I would go to Newtown. No, you don't. You can't imagine the horror.
No, I
of
know.
that.
I was laughing at the song.
Oh,
No,
am I hearing it?
This isn't the song Fred sent me. This is the NWO theme song.
Well, when you think about these things, humor
Now,
releases tension.
Yes,
too.
it does.
It's interesting that you mentioned Donald Trump doesn't like you. Why did you have him on your
You
show
don't
while
like
he was
me.
campaigning?
You don't like me.
Donald Trump contacts me every night.
He was on your show while he was campaigning.
Telepathically.
I help him to fight the globalists.
Telepathically.
Yes. We have a telepathic
Bye.
connection.
You know, I lost the probe.
You lost
I think
the
you
probe.
guys are faking it.
I lost the probe. I wonder if Joel has it now. Did he levitate the show?
Did you drop the probe in front of the Episcopal Church?
Oh, let's not get into that. The Henry VIII and all that. you
Oh
know.
my.
I am. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I warned him. I'm punchy.
Oh, jeez. What's? Ugh. I'd like to have hit something, but Matt has his.
I don't mean that kind of punchy. I'm not gonna hit anything.
Punch drunk. Well, I feel that.
No,
too.
God, no. I don't even drink.
Well, punch drunk's when you've been hit in the head.
No. Punchy being silly.
Oh. Yes.
You wearing a MAGA hat? I can't read that right
No,
from
it's
here.
Disabled American Veteran.
John Hopwood making America great again.
You need to get a different one.
Fighting
Get a
the
blue one
globalists.
or something.
This is their color. I do have one but it's all spelled out.
Well, good. Wear that one instead.
Well, it's a way.
From a distance, you look like a Trumpkin.
Right, but I'm actually a veteran, unlike him who poses in front of a Medal of Honor.
Trump loves the veterans.
You were right. I think it was the last time. You should engage North Korea. Although I guess he's getting bamboozled, right?
Kim Jong Un is being controlled by the deep state.
Now you leave him alone.
Jesus. I'm sorry.
You
Well,
leave,
no,
my,
I'm
you
just
leave
of
my
you.
friend alone.
Well, speaking of conspiracy theories, my favorite website, and hopefully yours, rightwingwatch.org, reports that according to Liz Scroken, John F. Kennedy Jr. faked his death and is now QAnon.
Isn't he living with Daryl Hannah?
And Elvis Presley.
Yes.
Elvis lived to 58 years old, and then he was cryogenically frozen by Michael Jackson.
It's true.
Who
I've
was
seen
his
the documents.
father-in-law?
I've seen the videotape.
Or was he?
I've actually been to his house.
Oh, yeah, it's so small. I think it's gonna be
spooky.
big.
It's
Is it-
like what?
is
it's
it small?
Yeah.
It is smaller than you
Really?
think it is. Yeah, yeah.
It's like surprisingly
'cause
small.
I-
It's not
it's,
like
it's
Hollywood.
modest in
'Cause I was-
comparison to what today's modern star would have, like a castle.
Well, because I just assumed it was this big
Or if it was
mansion.
Beverly Hills. It's just
it's
a
about the
house.
same size as my parents' house.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's a house.
Yeah,
Wow.
it really is. It's a house with an indoor shooting range, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It is.
It is, and there's still casings there, and it's neat in some respects, but in other respects, the aroma and
The vibe.
the way it's like walking through a funeral home. You feel like you're invading somebody's space.
Hmm.
And then of course you go out back where they have the gravestones and where's my and the controversy over the two A's.
What?
Aaron.
Yes,
I don't know about this.
Elvis Aaron Presley.
One of the excuses used to prove that Elvis Presley was not really dead from a overdose he did to himself was that his grave has two A's in Aaron, and he spelled it with one. Therefore, it's not really his body.
I've never seen Aaron spelled with one A.
I have.
However, I have seen the documents, and yes, that is true, and Elvis is alive.
You're dealing with Mississippi in 1935. It's
Oy
remarkable that they
vez
could
mia.
use a typewriter or sign their
You know,
names.
he was actually a really extraordinary person.
Oh, yeah.
There's an area there that there's all these areas to see his albums and posters and his outfits and things, and you think you're going to see that. But what you don't expect is to walk into a room that's got nothing but canceled checks. No.
I don't
no.
remember that.
There's canceled checks all over the place from everywhere in his community, where he built a school playground, where he donated money to a fire department,
He
where he
gave
built a new
lots
statement. He
anonymously.
gave back to his community
Yep.
through his entire life, and none of it came out until after his death.
Yeah, because he'd do it anonymously.
And
he'd be
then-
watching TV and see some terrible
and he would
thing.
just
He'd
write a
check.
check.
Yeah.
And send it out.
Oh, yeah.
Or there was a situation where someone had passed away in the community, and it was a big deal, and there wasn't any money for appropriate gravestone. He
Right.
stepped in and paid for it. And
'Cause
so
he-
there's a
yeah.
room where you literally can walk in, and there's these letters of thank yous. There's awards. They're all over the place.
Oh, people
and all
loved
these
Elvis.
canceled checks that he wrote to the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the city, you name it, to give back to his community. And that was not something that I expected to see, and it really gave me an appreciation for him as
Yeah.
a human being to give back.
Yeah. It didn't come out till after he died.
No,
Because when he died, there was all this
it was
awful
like a
publicity
big
'cause
deal that
his
you
drugs
had to
and stuff,
keep
yeah.
it secret. If
Right.
you worked for him and you went and divulged anything, you were out.
You had to keep it secret because he was part of the deep state.
Did he?
He was. Nixon,
No,
the
the
White
people
House.
in
Yes.
the deep state are
Clinton.
Moloch.
Yes.
Bill,
That's
young Bill
Moloch.
Clinton.
Exactly. John Hopwood, you understand.
I was there.
You have completely lost your mind.
He's one of the globalists.
You know what's going to fix this is when I get my ice cream.
Hmm.
When there's free ice cream?
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
With the new inspection stickers in New Hampshire, you know how they
Yes.
moved them
Yeah,
from
I don't
the
like it
middle to the
moving 'em.
left? Are
That's
they
like every
still-
state.
Are they still color coded on the outside to match the
You're
plate?
asking a colorblind person.
Oh,
How do
shit.
I know?
Oh.
I really don't know.
No.
I know what you mean, but it
No,
doesn't mean anything to
I
me.
forgot. I'm so sorry. That was
Oh,
terrible.
Everybody, I have an F bomb though, which when I got my
no,
TV
I
show,
forgot that
Yeah.
you were colorblind. I'm sorry.
hey, you know,
Well, it's not like it's a disability.
or
maybe it is.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
if
no.
you can't see the difference between yellow
No.
and red, what do you think's going to happen?
John Hopwood is handy capable.
That's true.
Yes.
But what were we
He's
talking about?
You're differently able.
It kept me out of the Marine Corps.
Yes.
My brother was telling my nephew the story because my brother was with me at the MEP station in Decatur, Georgia. I'd scored the highest ever. But, we're talking about Decatur, Georgia, 1977.
Is the head
It's
gonna
like,
get any bigger?
being the president of North Korea before you had nuclear weapons.
Oi.
You're right about nukes
The
are a
booths
bid
are getting
to
so thick
quality.
in here.
Ooh. We need a big fan in here.
Yeah, we do.
No, I'm saying what's coming out of you is I need some
Flatulence?
really tall boots.
Well, I'm gonna play
Or a
this.
hat.
I'm gonna play this Liz
It's coming
Crokin.
down so fast.
Liz Crokin audio. Let's take a listen to this, and then let's see if she can convince us with her theory.
That whole theory.
I
Because I've
agree.
been following it really closely. So I tweeted this theory months ago. I think it was in April. All right. And okay, number one, when I'm over the target, and this is something that you know yourself because you've dealt with it, that's when I get the most slack, whether it's censorship on social media like you deal with as well. But when I'm really over the
Vowels?
target, there's a hit piece about me like that's posted on one of these, BS websites almost immediately.
Right.
Now in April, I shared a theory about John being alive and being part of Q. And when I first heard this theory, it just immediately resonated with me. I got goosebumps everywhere. And I'm a very intuitive person, and usually when it happens, that's confirmation that there's truth to it, right?
Whenever an insane idea pops into my head, I get goosebumps everywhere. I can't quite explain it.
Not pimples?
No. Apparently goosebumps.
And I felt compelled to tweet it. And I wrote in a tweet something along the lines of, this is an interesting theory. I didn't state as fact that John F. Kennedy Jr. is alive. I didn't state anything as fact. I just said this is interesting. And right after I shared this on Twitter, there was a hit piece written about me, and I'm thinking, that's really crazy. Like, why? It is so bizarre.
I have this crazy idea, and then I tell people about it, and then they respond with like they think I'm crazy or something. I don't understand.
Tweeted a theory that wasn't even my own, and said this is interesting. And next thing I know, there's a hit piece written about me, like calling me names and saying I'm a nut, literally calling me a nut.
I've been
And
called that.
so that within itself made me think, ooh, like there's something to this. So since then, and part of the reason why the theory resonated with me is because Q at one point said, "You're not going to believe who you're talking to here." And when Q wrote that, I thought it's going to be someone that's so crazy where even people that like are woke and know what's going on are going to be like, "Oh my Lord!"
Oh, did you hear that? People who are woke.
Oh, I
Woke
thought
and
you
know
said
what's going on.
broke.
No.
This is
It's like a
insane.
Como tape.
And so, it being President Trump, well, everybody knows President Trump's a part of it, so that's not shocking.
He's
Someone
been
like
keeping
General
John
Flynn,
John.
like that wouldn't be shocking.
House pet. Like
Seth
you know
Rich,
who in
now that would be
Litchfield.
shocking because we all think he's dead. John F. Kennedy Jr., that would be shocking because we all think he's dead. So it has to be someone where we're all like, what the? And okay, so
WTF.
furthermore, when you, as someone who's a writer who's not only written tons of articles but wrote an entire novel, I study handwriting. And I'm really good at, if someone texts...
Wait, hold on. Now, we need to... I feel badly. We've been making fun of this woman, but she does have some credibility. She's written an entire novel.
If one of my good friends has someone steal their phone and they text me, I'll know in one text that it's not them. I'm really good at reading handwriting and understanding handwriting.
Handwriting in a text?
And what I've always kind of felt with Q's post is that, and I believe Q's a group of people and President Trump's part of it, but there's probably one main...
She's not wrong. I mean, if you watch Star Trek, Q is like a group. It's not like the one guy.
Is it you or Hugh?
It's Q.
Oh, Q.
Q.
Q is an ancient Mexican deity that's invaded the United States, which, well, if you can say that it's been here forever.
Awesome Star Trek Next Generation character.
Well, I'm talking about
that I
ancient
totally
Mexico.
loved.
He was what animated the Aztec mummy that the wrestling women had to take on.
Do you know actually quite a bit of things that have shown up in Star Trek have come out of ancient stories like that?
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if Q was developed out of that.
Gene Roddenberry was
And-
part of the deep state.
Who
Oh
was
God, here he goes
who-
again. Somebody
who-
call in and straighten this guy out.
who was the inspiration from Gene Roddenberry for Doctor? I keep calling him Doctor Spock, Mr. Spock.
The inspiration? I don't know.
Oh, I know the answer to that one. Damn.
Somebody
I will
with-
give you a clue.
somebody-
Gene Roddenberry was a Los Angeles policeman, and if you watch Dragnet, he would appear on at the end. Although
Some-
they don't have it in the DVD.
somebody
I
with-
can't think of a name.
Somebody with
and he had the
pointy
phone,
ears.
right? He
Police
had the
Chief
phone.
Davis.
And he had the phone.
Because he had a logical mind, and he had become a lawyer. Where before the chiefs had all been wild guys that ran all the vice in L.A. They were
yeah.
wild characters.
Mm.
One guy they nailed after coming out of a bordello,
Now
but
you're
then they made him
starting to
chief
go from-
again. Yeah, but it's funny.
He's
but
going from Alex Jones to Yoda.
Oh.
Roddenberry was very, Roddenberry was great. And,
Oh
you know,
my
the
gosh,
people
yeah.
that picked up the franchise, too.
Well, you kind of lost me after Deep Space Nine.
yeah, exactly. You're
I
right.
was right
Hmm.
there until Deep Space Nine. I was
Yeah.
there with. I liked Quark and the characters that were there. But when they went beyond that with Janeway and that crew and everything,
Right.
and yeah, they kind of lost me there.
Well, there's a little bit more to this.
I lost my access to cable, too.
Oh, wow.
Quite a
Main
while
person
ago.
who's cute.
Oh,
who could
geez.
be
I don't want
possibly
cable.
John F.
I
Kennedy
can't afford
Jr.
it. And I don't want
The
it
one
either.
thing that always struck me about Q's post is the passion for John
I
F.
get
Kennedy
constant.
Sr.
Huh?
And when I say passion,
I
I'm
remember
talking the passion for JFK Sr. is so intense. I don't see how this passion could come from anyone that A, didn't know
Maybe it's
him,
JFK
and
himself.
B, didn't love him. And so you have to think about, well, who could that be?
Any
Well,
Mick from
if
the
John F.
Boston
Kennedy
area, a
Jr.
certain
was still
area,
alive,
yeah.
then that would make perfect sense. But the way that Q talks about Senior, JFK Senior in the posts, it's with such love and passion. It makes me think it's someone that was close to him.
No one's
okay?
ever called him
And so
JFK
to
Senior.
me, well, if
Yeah, I
JFK
know.
Jr. like fakes his death and is alive, it would make sense that he was Q.
Wow.
It would,
Wow.
wouldn't
Well,
it?
there
It
you
would
go.
make sense.
It-
I agree.
I grew up on just off Cape, and the Kennedys were always been a big deal family in Massachusetts. I mean, I went to John F. Kennedy Jr. High
Yeah.
School, and we went on a field trip
To
to the John
Brookline?
F. Kennedy Library,
Oh, yeah,
and
Dorchester.
it's unsettling at the same time that it's amazing. You're looking at his real office, his
Right. The
his-
chair, the
y-
rocking
yes.
chair.
Yeah, you're looking at these amazing things
Books,
about this
yeah.
man who dared to step out against real serious crime. Him and his brother were going hardcore
Yeah, Bobby.
against real serious crime. Yeah, Bobby had the full support of the president of the United States.
He won't let me bring in my wax head. of
and-
Bobby
That
Why
Kennedy.
not?
freaks me out.
Freaks
wow,
him out.
The idea of it.
It's
Oh, I
from the
wanna-
Hollywood Wax Museum, too, where
Very-
he got killed. He was my childhood hero.
Very
Bobby Kennedy.
unsettling. Very unsettling, yes.
And
Nothing is more unsettling than walking into a room full of dolls that have eyes that move.
Well,
what about
you-
a doll full of wax heads
I'll bring in the wax
wax
head
head.
the
I
next
wanna
time you
see it.
come.
on
Oh,
Halloween?
I want to take it to the Board of Aldermen because Bobby Kennedy's famous thing is a politician should learn to not live off of the people.
Hmm.
It's I can look it up. It's much
Well,
more elegant. But I'll look up
There's
its
always
famous
been
quote.
conspiracy, and one of the things I thought was really neat was when I was a kid, we studied the
Oh, I'm
conspiracies
I'm
between
into that. Yeah.
President Lincoln's assassination and
Which
President
was a
Kennedy's
conspiracy, yeah.
assassination, and the similarities between the two, and the fact that
It's
they were
uncanny.
literally 100%. I was in school when it was 100 years apart, or hit that marker or something. I don't know. There was something that was going on. I remember having CBBW Channel 5 show up, and how amazing that is. There's a lot of conspiracy about him, and that he was killed. But I have no doubt in my mind, sadly, that
LBJ
that
did
his
it.
son did die in that plane crash.
Oh.
There was so much evidence. They did find the plane. They did find remains. It devastated the state of Massachusetts.
I thought it was
It's
a
devastated,
crisis actor, wasn't it?
Everybody.
It was a crisis actor. You're right.
Here he goes again.
Because he was much shorter than the original JFK Jr.
Or
They
the
had to have
base,
the fake boots.
It was
you know?
it was a false flag operation.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas used to use
Yes,
those
because
boots.
plane crashes never occur.
That's right. It was
Especially
engineered. by the
when
Not
they're
government.
small planes.
nowadays.
Yeah, well, really?
Before
There was
CNN
just
got
one
Donald.
yesterday that people actually survived, though.
Before we had Donald Trump, CNN, you'd go to an airport, the same plane crash, they'd have it over and over and over again. Now they got Donald Trump.
All
which
those.
is- I'd rather see the plane crashes.
Walking plane crash.
The plane crash of a whole country, right?
Him and Alex.
Presidency.
all the plane crashes were done using CGI.
Just like them landing on the moon.
Can you only imagine how horrifying it is for people who have actually lost loved ones to have people sitting there repetitively saying, your loved one didn't die. That was an accident. That was a crisis actor, and we've seen them in other places. And
Yeah, no,
you
that
didn't
has
really
to be.
lose your kid. You didn't lose your mom. You didn't lose your wife. You didn't lose your husband.
You know what it reminds me of? There was,
It's sick.
if you've
It's
ever
sick.
seen Ray Bradbury
It's
Theater,
crazy.
which was on when I was a kid, Ray Bradbury Theater. I think it
Yeah.
was on Showtime, and there's this episode called The Crowd. I actually looked it up about a year ago. I found it on YouTube. And in this episode, The Crowd, so there's these car accidents, and this guy figures out that at every car accident where somebody dies, the same crowd of people gathers around the accident victim while they're waiting for the
I've seen
first
that
responders
in
to
real
show up.
life.
It's the same people, and
You've
then
seen
what ends up happening is the
I
guy
remotely.
the guy accidentally runs over his friend, and then he sees his own friend in the crowd. So then he figures out that as these people die in these accidents, they actually become a part of the crowd, and it's creepy as hell. I recommend it. Ray Bradbury Theater. It's on YouTube.
Is
and the
this
episode is called
after
The
he
Crowd.
escaped from the lunatic asylum? Because when I was going to the VA in Los
I
Angeles,
think we're talking about two very different
which
things.
is up near Bel Air, where UCLA is,
No,
Westwood.
don't you remember his old show, Black and White, and it would start out with him kind of setting the scene of
Are you
the
talking
story,
about
Ray
Rod,
Bradbury,
Rod Sterling?
and then it would go
Twilight
into the
Zone?
story. No,
That's
no,
Twilight
no, no,
Zone.
no, no, no,
No, this was Ray
not
Brad-
the Twilight Zone.
This
He's
was
sitting,
in the 80s. Ray
he's
Bradbury
sitting
Theater.
at a desk, or he's in a library walking
Ray
around.
In a
Ray
li- in a
Bradbury.
library, yeah.
And kind of setting the scene a little bit, and
Yeah.
then they go into it.
Yeah.
It sounds, but it's similar but different.
That's the show.
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury
Yeah.
Theater, yeah.
Ray Bradbury wrote the script for John Huston's adaptation of Moby Dick.
Oh.
Oh, no kidding.
That's the first time they used a large rubber
Call me
creature.
Ishmael.
They put Gregory Peck on the big whale. It was in the Irish Sea, and all of a sudden there's a mist, and suddenly your $1 million star is sailing off into the
For real?
nothing. Ray Bradbury's a very interesting writer,
Wait,
an
t-
interesting character.
Wait, tell that story. What happened?
John
real?
Huston lived in
Wait, back up.
Moby
for
Dick.
real, not an Onion story, real
Right.
story.
They adapted Moby Dick for the screen, and by John Huston, who's legendary director, but he's in the middle. He'd already won the Oscar, and if for younger people, he won the Oscar for the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and the other most famous movie he probably made is The African Queen. And he was a literary type of guy, but he wanted to adapt Moby Dick. And Ray Bradbury adapted it. Ray Bradbury started writing at a very young age, like 14 or something. And he's from Los Angeles. And, he wrote all sorts of stuff. But in order to shoot the film, they had this large rubber part of a whale made,
Yeah.
which could float.
Yeah.
And they strap Gregory Peck, who's Ahab, to it.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
remember, he goes after it, and then he comes, when the whale comes up, he's strapped to it, he's crucified.
Yeah.
And then Starbuck says, well, let's go after it. And why? He says, it's only a whale. And then even more hell breaks loose. But it's Ireland, so there's all these myths. So they got Gregory Peck, who was the highest paid star of his time, strapped to this whale. Suddenly this fog comes in,
Yeah.
and this big piece of floating rubber just floats away. And he's
He's
strapped to
losing
this damn piece of thing. Think, what the hell? is
I
going
guess
on?
that. Well,
Wow.
maybe that's how the movie industry learned to tie a rope to something.
Yeah.
I never was able to read all of Moby Dick, but I've seen the movie about 3 times.
Yeah.
I never got caught past Call Me Ishmael.
I didn't get much. There are some great
No, I'm only
passages, but
kidding.
oh my
No,
god,
there is.
how
There
can
is.
you read it all?
Well,
It's so archaic, the language.
Hello to Ben Dion, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Ben Dion, host of the weekly Dion.
yeah, aren't they going to be on tonight?
6 p.m. right here on WMNH
Yeah.
95.3 FM. Well, that reminds me, too, by the way, a programming note. No interview today to share with all of you with
Why?
Australian rapper Muggsy.
Well, it's not his fault.
Had to reschedule. Yeah, there was a power outage where he is.
Australia got
So-
hit.
So we're going to record that
By
tonight
the Lucifer?
instead.
No, like by bad weather that took out the
Satellite.
power, so he couldn't. He couldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
he had no power at all.
So we're going to record that instead tonight, and we will share that with you on tomorrow's program, or program if you prefer.
If you
Which is
haven't
British.
heard this guy yet, I really like him. He is a rapper, but you can play every one of his songs on radio and never have to worry about a word. And his music is very positive, very, very much uplifting, very much trying to empower people and be a positive influence. And we need more of that in today's society. We're living in a society where there's so much negativity, there's so much violence, there's so much death. And it seems to me, I feel like it gets worse every day. Every day I turn on the news, and I mean, here I am with my mom and dad, and my community had just lost Officer Chesna and the innocent woman in Weymouth, and just a few days, just a week later, we have again a situation in Falmouth, where there were 2, I believe, that were shot, and this is. It seems to me like we're living in a day and age where all of society is getting all of their information from social media resources. Every communication they have is typewritten. There's no emotion. There's no eye-to-eye contact. There's no real human contact. It's words on a screen. And people get...
That's true.
And I found myself doing it, where I have become enraged by somebody typing because I read it, and the way I perceive it is not the same way they wrote it. So to see an artist who's, and I gotta say, I have become a Muggsy fan big time. I have a lot of respect for an artist who's really willing to put a lot of work into what he does. And he actually reached out to me and Matt, and then that shows a lot too. And then we got to hear his music and just kind of fell in love. But to have somebody, I need more of him. I need to clone him a lot. And get more people to get out there with more positive, and you can see it. Sia just recently released a song called "Free" that's extraordinarily empowering. There's a lot of other artists that I think are starting to pick up on the fact that they need to be a better influence, because people are listening to their words. And if all you're talking about is death, destruction, sex, whatever, that's not a positive influence. But if you can start talking about how great it is to be you, and why that's great, and why you should have, power in yourself, and be empowered to help your community and things of that nature, I think maybe we stand a chance. I sometimes lose hope in humanity, and I'll go on YouTube and watch videos just to give me back hope. Just to give me back some hope.
I listen to classical music. When I need to perk myself
a
up.
video.
Like the Fifth Symphony.
Check this out. Here's this woman. She just got her car inspected. She spent like hundreds of dollars on this thing, right?
Let's not talk about cars.
She's got no job. She's driving to a job interview, and all of a sudden, blue lights. Oh no, she's getting pulled over. So she pulls over. She starts reaching into her glove box.
Coincidentally, I hear sirens.
And she's reaching into her glove box to pull out her registration and her proof of insurance and all of that. And the cop comes walking up next to her, and he says, "No, don't bother pulling any of that out. Do you know your brake lights are out?"
Well, that's
and she's like, "What?" And then she tells him the story about just having the car inspected and how they wanted to charge her $600 to check her brake wiring, and she just had the brakes fixed by them. And he realizes that she got taken advantage of, and his concern was that if she tried to stop and nobody saw her,
it'd be a collision.
There would be an accident. So what does the cop do? He doesn't give her a ticket. He doesn't give her a warning. Doesn't call a
Takes
tow
her back.
truck. Doesn't.
Does he take her back to the gas station or the service
No.
station?
He tells her to pop the trunk. He starts pulling out the wiring. He starts checking all the wiring. He goes into the some kind of transistor box or something in the engine.
Fuse. Well, you
and
got
then he
the
goes
fuse
into
box.
and then he goes into another one inside her car, trying to fix it so she can go on and have working lights, and he doesn't have to worry that there's going to be a safety issue. And like she's sitting there phenomenally. The reason I know the story is because she took pictures of it and then she posted it on social media to say, I know we hear a lot of bad things about cops and stuff, but look what this guy did.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to my job interview.
Yeah.
You know, and
No,
and
that's
I could have
great.
gotten, she could have gotten killed. She could have gotten hurt.
Where was that?
I remember when my brakes failed in
I'm
San
trying to remember
Francisco.
what state it was in.
Mm.
Forgive me for not remembering what state it's in.
Yeah.
But I've been reading and watching
Muskeg.
stories like that around the country.
Yeah.
They get little to no attention in the media.
Yeah.
And people become more enraged by what the media presents. But why not present the good?
Right. Well,
It doesn't get ratings.
obviously somebody presented it though, or you wouldn't know about it. So somebody out there
It got
reported
out
on
there
it.
through social media, and
Yeah.
because of that, I do know that the officer was accommodated by his chief, and they did recognize him, and he did go way above and beyond. I mean, that's
Yeah.
totally above and beyond the duty. But he felt bad for this woman, and I'm sure he advised her on what she should do about the fact that she was taken advantage of by this company.
Now, see, if we were writing a screenplay, he would take her back to the service station.
No, but then she'd miss her job interview.
Yes, but then we'd find out
They would fall in
that
love.
service station.
And get married.
There was intrigue. Now, what kind of intrigue would it be?
Oh.
Drug dealing,
Oh.
red or blue
Oh.
Pleiadians. You know, I don't know. According to my nephew, when he was
Moonshine.
younger, there was cars are aliens.
There might
they
be a-
come from
Cars are aliens?
Opus Dei or what was it, Primus,
Whoa, wait a
something or
minute.
other. The big, there's these.
Optimus Prime.
They're like aliens that are machines. Yeah, and they
Transformers.
turn-
more
tran-
than
yeah.
more than
Oh,
meets
I had
the
to
eye.
hear about every damn Transformer there ever was. But it's cool because
Thankfully, I never had to deal with Transformers.
in the old days, like with my nieces, you
My
watch
kid
Beauty
was
of the
totally
Beast.
into
Oh, that's a good
Marvel
movie.
and X-Men and that kind of thing. So
But they just churn this
we had
Transformer
action
stuff
figures.
out at the games.
Well,
I
let's.
had a GI Joe.
It's a little bit past the top of the hour. Let's take a break. I want to hear this song that Fred sent called "New World Order," and then we'll come back and talk some more. It's
Thanks, Fred.
Matt Connarton Unleashed in the afternoon. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM, and don't go away. There's more to come. Let's take a listen to this. Fred always sends good stuff. Here we go.
The world ended about an hour ago while I was still in bed. The paparazzi thought the people should know, but they were already dead. So set your watches back as far as they go to zero post-apocalyptic time, 'cause it's the New World Order Pax American So there's a party getting started at the scene of the crime down at the New World Order Pax American Paradise. The first lady called the National Guard. She said, "Hey George, what the hell? There's 50 million people dead in our yard, and you know I don't feel too well." He said, "Missy, being president's hard, but we'll win 'em over one at a time to the New World Order Pax American Paradise." Yeah, the New World Order Pax American Paradise. Starting to sound like a pretty good idea. Yeah, the New World Order Pax American Paradise.
Here's the story of a shameless grifter and the con men who were running his campaign. They were sucking on the teat of Mother Russia and also of Ukraine. It's the story of a guy named Putin who was rigging the electoral outcome, sending agents from the GRU. Just say GRU, dumb. And these agents met with Manafort and Sessions, Carter Page and Roger Stone and Michael Flynn, Jared Kushner and Donald Jr. Now what deep borscht they're in. Yeah, they're saying Papadopoulos will topple us, and Robert Mueller will have us all for lunch. Oh, but he is not inviting, he's indicting. That's the way they all became the Shady Bunch. The Shady Bunch. The Shady Bunch. That's the way they became the Shady Bunch. In a way, even Trump can't counterpunch.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's hour number 2 of Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. Of course, time is relative. It's actually 11 minutes after the top of the hour, but, you know, it doesn't matter. Let's see. It is, of course, Thursday, August 2nd, 2018. Let's see. Jenny is here as well.
I am. I'm having an anti-limpy day.
Oh,
So I'll shout out to all my limpy warriors.
all right.
I chose to not wear it today and
Yes.
give myself a break.
And John Hopwood is around, but I think he's visiting the little
Best
boys'
room of the house.
The best room of the house? Is that what he
Yes,
called it?
That's what my grandma called it. It's
Oh.
a respectful way of saying it.
Oh, okay. So there is some news in terms of the Russia probe. TheHill.com is reporting Mueller agrees to some limits on Trump interview, according to a new report. Special counsel Robert Mueller has reportedly agreed to place some limitations on the types of questions he would ask of President Trump during a potential interview. The Washington Post reports that Mueller is considering reducing the number of questions asked of Trump about possible obstruction of justice during an interview. He would instead allow Trump to submit some of those responses in writing, which that's like kind of cheating in a way. It gives Trump time to think about the answers.
Have you read his Twitter account?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an advantage for Trump.
To have somebody else
Isn't that
write
what
it?
they did with Clinton in the first part before it went into court? You know,
I mean,
court. You take the depositions.
Right.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
There's some things, though, you have to recognize that Trump has done right. I mean, we do a lot of Trump bashing, but there are some things that he has done
Me,
right.
I'm a Trump supporter.
Yeah, look at that hat.
Look at that hat.
MAGA, baby.
I can't
Oy
remember
vey.
what I was
Yeah.
supporting him about, but if you give me a week or so.
It's it's probably the showing ID for groceries. I think it's a great idea. Mueller still
I wrote it.
Mueller still wants to question Trump on possible obstruction of justice and whether there was
I
collusion
almost have Bob.
between the Trump campaign and Russia, according to the New York Times. Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, told reporters yesterday that the president's legal team is, quote, in the process of responding to their proposal, unquote. The Times also reported yesterday that Trump is again pushing his lawyers to allow him to interview with Mueller, despite his attorneys advising him against the move. Trump doesn't always listen well, of course, as we all know. Mueller has been pushing for a sit-down interview with Trump for months. He reportedly told Trump's attorneys that he would subpoena the president to testify before a grand jury if Trump didn't agree to be questioned. Giuliani said at the time that Trump didn't have to comply with the subpoena, a claim that has faced some pushback. Giuliani, who is leading talks with Mueller's team, has also claimed that an interview with the special counsel would be an attempt to trick Trump into committing perjury. Trump recently stepped up his attacks on Mueller's probe, which he has long claimed is rigged and a witch hunt. He targeted the investigation in a series of tweets yesterday, one day after his former campaign chairman Paul Manafort went to trial on charges brought forward by Mueller. So there you go.
They want to roll. They don't want to use the Paul Jones versus Clinton precedent and go back to Nixon. You remember Nixon was an unindicted co-conspirator. Collusion, is conspiracy to defraud.
Yes.
Conspiracies, a lawyer we both know told me, conspiracies are relatively easy to get a conviction on, but from prosecutors' point of view. There was recently a case, I think last year in New Hampshire, where a woman rented a room to somebody that was dealing drugs, and then they indicted her for conspiracy to,
I remember that
drugs,
they tried to actually
traffic drugs.
and this would
She's getting
interest you,
$100 a
Matt.
month.
This
I
would
mean,
interest
week
you,
from
Matt.
now.
They actually threatened to use civil asset forfeiture
Right.
and confiscate the hotel
Oh,
because
okay.
of the person who had rented out the room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were holding the owners liable for
Right.
what went on in there. But I don't understand that because
But
my
under
understanding is when
conspiracy.
you rent something or you lease something, you then become responsible for it.
I don't know.
And you're the one that can say what can and cannot go on inside that environment so long as it is within your agreement.
But how do you know if
Exactly.
they're dealing drugs?
How
Right,
can you
yeah.
be aware
It's
of
not
what
It's
fair.
not like
Right.
don't bring a cat or a dog.
Right.
If we go by that theory, then every single landlord is at risk
Liable, yeah.
for losing every single property that they rent, every single property that they own for their own
Right.
family or their cars or what have you.
Yeah.
To
And don't
civil
think
asset
that-
forfeiture due to a renter or a leaser
Right.
doing something illicit out of the apartment.
Don't
Right.
think that hasn't gone through some prosecutors' heads. You know
Of
what
course,
I mean?
yeah.
Which is why I'm absolutely 100% against civil asset forfeiture.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's shameful.
Well,
It's wrong.
It
It is wrong.
I have a great story here about that, actually, from Reason.com. This just happened a couple days ago. Federal judge rules that Albuquerque's asset forfeiture created an unconstitutional profit incentive. Oh, gee, what do you know? Imagine that.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, he
We've been
said,
talking about
There's
that.
never been a judge to acknowledge, to my
That's
knowledge.
the first I've heard.
I've
Which is
never
so
heard of a judge
self-evident.
acknowledge that it
Yeah.
is used to enrich.
he wrote in his decision, there is a realistic possibility that forfeiture officials' judgment will be distorted by the prospect of institutional gain. Here's a little bit from the article. So it says, a judge has ruled, bless you, that Albuquerque's civil asset forfeiture program violated residents' due process rights, yeah, no kidding, by forcing them to prove their innocence to retrieve their cars. Under civil forfeiture laws, police can seize property suspected of being connected to criminal activity, even if the owner isn't charged with a crime. The city of Albuquerque, quote, has an unconstitutional institutional incentive to prosecute forfeiture cases because, in practice, the forfeiture program sets its own budget and can spend, without meaningful oversight, all of the excess funds it raises from previous years, unquote, U.S. District Judge James O. Browning wrote in an order filed Saturday.
I've heard of that, Judge. You
Yeah.
know, remember, they're always pushing the war on drugs.
Well,
Starting
it's-
maybe with Reagan as being self-financed.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Civil asset forfeiture in its earlier years really had to do with gangsters and had to do with
Rico, Rico. You had
Rico.
it was a high
It
bar.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
and these people were found guilty.
Also-
now we're living in a society where civil asset forfeiture is taking place, and I believe Matt did a story earlier in the week or last week where somebody lost their. It had been 18 months since their belongings had been taken away from them. They were never charged. They were never convicted.
I know
and
somebody
they
that-
can't
yeah.
get their stuff back, and
Yeah.
they're being told they have to get a lawyer
Right.
in order to get their things back. Never convicted, never charged, and even if charged, never convicted. People who are found innocent And it should be an automatic. You're innocent. Here are your things.
No, you end up having to sue the government just to get your stuff back, and sue them with what? All your assets have been seized.
Well,
Exactly.
and they've also said, "Oh, well, we'll use this and we'll stop people from these criminals
money
who are innocent until proven guilty. They're criminals. We've already convicted them, which
Yep.
is unconstitutional in my mind.
Right.
And they won't be able to get a lawyer.
Exactly.
And it's like,
exactly.
why does a logic of that? The uniqueness
scam.
of the American and the English, the Anglo-Saxon, if you want to call it, system is
And you gotta-
you are innocent until you're proven guilty.
But not when it comes to civil asset forfeiture. When it comes to civil
Right.
asset forfeiture, you
It's
are
crazy.
guilty until proven innocent, and even there, that is not enough to get you back your things.
Yep.
And what people don't often realize is when assets get seized, when banks accounts are frozen, when people then they take their houses, their cars, they sell them, the money is split between the federal government
Right.
and the state.
Oh,
and it
I've
goes
read
back
plenty of
to the
articles
police
about that.
department that confiscated it. So that's how they get.
Mhm.
And that's the sad thing is that
and
in
they
some of
prosecute
these-
you in the press.
Mhm.
You're
In
convicted in
some-
the press
and-
before a
And part of
trial.
the part of the incentivization is poor management by communities and governments when it comes to police departments. Why should police departments have to raise their own funding to afford bulletproof vests? Why should police departments have to raise their own funding
very
to
enticing.
afford
'Cause they can.
to replace a decrepit car? I remember living in a community where I literally watched the officer like lift the car door to get it back in place on the car.
Do you know where this was originally
But see what I'm saying though?
used? The Deep South. People
Yeah.
would come in like Yankees. You'd come down 95 or something. Then they'd comb through a car. Oh, we
Well,
got
didn't
ashes
you-
of a
Yeah.
joint. We're taking your car.
Well, didn't
and then it
you,
was,
uh,
oh, this is great.
Actually,
'Cause
if
in
you
a
really want to
southern
get
place.
technical, a lot of gun laws began with racial intent. The intent was to ensure that people of color were not allowed to have
No,
firearms.
I don't know about that.
You do
And
your
I
research.
was an
Do
NRA
your
member
research.
for years.
I don't get.
I have done
NRA,
my research. I have
no,
books.
I have little to no respect for the NRA, but read the books that were
Well,
written by Aaron.
Yeah.
Read the books that were written by Aaron from
I've
Jews.
read plenty of it. I
from-
know there's the famous case
Do you
in
know what I'm
Detroit,
saying?
the Sweet case. That's Clarence Darrow, where he
Go-
defended himself with a rifle.
I'll bring you the book.
But I already know that pretty well. I think it's about
No.
the.
Well, if you really want to,
I know
back, it
about. I
started
know
in
what
Nazi
happened in
Germany.
California in the state assembly in 1967 with the Black Panthers, because you could open carry in California until
Jews
they
for
went
the-
into the
Jews
legislature.
for the
that
preservation
day.
of firearms ownership.
Well,
Aaron, who passed away, wrote a very good book, which included actual copies of the documentation.
I'm not disputing
The
what you say, but I
bills
think it's more general.
To originally take away gun rights were started in Germany. They were
But that's
attached
not
to
the
going
United
after
States.
Jews. Then what was done was Congress took that exact language and changed
that's
it
not
to meet.
true.
That is very true, and I can prove it to you, and I can show you the documents, and I have copies of it at home. And they took that exact language that they used to take away the weapons of Jews and gypsies and anybody else they didn't want to have a firearm, to pass law in the United States.
Germany's a completely different type of society in the United States. It's a
You
different
look
law.
at the law that was written in Germany, translated into English, and you look at the law that was put into place in the United States, and the
What
language
law?
is almost identical. The original laws that started putting constraints on American citizens
That
to be
started
able to
in
own
the 20s
firearms.
with the friggin' explosion of violence with
I'm going
gangsters
to bring
who
you
were
a
maybe
book. I'm
Italians.
going to bring you a book by Aaron, and I'm going to show you the original documentation and the proof that what I am saying to you is true.
But when there's about banning these guns, and I pro
I don't
Second
care about
Amendment,
opinion. I
it's
care
in the
about-
1920s.
I don't care about
The
opinions.
Nazis aren't until 1930s.
I don't care about opinions. I care about
not an
actual
opinion.
documentation. The documents are there to prove it, and I can show them to you.
Hello to NASCAR Nicey, who joins us in
They
the
might be fake.
Facebook
They're
live
not
chat,
fake.
as well as Tom
God rest
Massengale.
Aaron's soul.
The original things were about the sawed-off shotguns and the submachine gun. That's from the 20s. Supreme Court until the Roberts Court did not deal with the Second Amendment generally because it was considered the police power, and
No,
that was
Congress
left up to the
created
states.
a law utilizing language that originated out of Germany, and I will show you the proof.
So there's more to this
Aaron
judge's.
Zellman.
There's more to this judge's decision.
It's probably it's a law that you bring the book in. I'd be interested in it
I will.
instead of being
It's
my
also signed by him.
my oppositional defiant self.
It's actually
Because you're talking about a
signed.
later law
It's actually
that I'm
signed
thinking of.
by Aaron Zellman. So I will
Yeah.
bring you and let you see
Sure.
the actual copy.
The judge
Can
wrote.
I read it? Do I get to read it?
The judge wrote, thus, there is a
What are we talking
realistic
about?
possibility that forfeiture officials' judgment will be distorted by the prospect of institutional gain. The more revenues they raise, the more revenues they can spend. The Institute for Justice, a libertarian public interest law firm, filed the lawsuit in 2016 on behalf of Arlene Harjo, whose car was seized after her son drove it while drunk. Harjo
Drunk? That's why they seized their car?
That's why, yeah, but I mean, it was him driving,
Well,
but
he
it
had
was,
a bottle of beer in the back.
but it was her car.
Crime against society.
She told Reason, quote, it's a scam and a ripoff. They're taking property from people who just loan a vehicle to someone. It's happened a lot. Everybody I've talked to has had it happen to them or somebody they know, and everybody just pays, unquote. Harjo was one of thousands of Albuquerque residents whose cars were seized under the city's aggressive forfeiture program. While lawsuits have forced cities like Philadelphia to reform their programs, federal judges have, for the most part, been unwilling to directly address the issue of profit incentive. Well, of course not. In a statement, Institute for Justice attorney Robert Everett Johnson said the Institute, quote, will undoubtedly use this decision to attack civil asset forfeiture programs nationwide.
Good.
Yeah. Today's
Well, that's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which
Yeah.
usually they're the circuit most liberal, and they get overturned the most by the Supreme Court.
mother
but-
court?
right.
Yeah, but who knows? The Roberts Court's a brand new type of court.
I
you know,
think
and it's
that
very
what
activist.
he
Yeah.
said was very strongly written, and I think that's
Yeah.
going to be very difficult
Oh, well, the
to
Supreme
try
Court
and
can do
overcome.
anything.
And I think lawyers who are smart are going to use that as an example when they're fighting for their clients, those that can afford to get a client. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who have already had everything taken away from them, so it's very rare to be able to find a case where somebody's trying to get their things back because they can't afford an attorney, unless there's a group of attorneys out there that are willing to do this pro bono.
Right.
But you see, the Supreme Court, the way it works, you know, to get if this case gets
You're
Who's
counting
gonna
on them
appeal
actually
it, though?
hearing.
the
You're-
state.
Even if somebody appealed it, you're also counting on the fact that the Supreme
Well,
Court
no,
would
you have
agree
to
hear
issue.
it.
You have to issue. Yeah, there's so many cases that that are kicked up the Supreme Court, but they have to issue a cert, the certiorari to
And,
actually hear the case, and they rarely do that. If
But
if
the
another
article indicates
if another-
that the law of the land has now been
but that's
set
not no
by
that's
the
not
Ninth
the law of the
District
land.
Court.
That's the law of the land in Arizona, probably in that district.
You don't think the First District Court here would recognize the Ninth
No.
District Court's decision?
Doesn't have to. You live in a federal system. There are different interpretations of laws throughout the different circuits. Dave Colapinto taught me this.
Yeah.
It's rather shocking when you figure it because you don't really think about that. But you're in a
Right.
federal system until a case. Now, if the Sixth Circuit issues an opinion, but it's quite different than this. First, to get up to the Supreme Court, it's got to be appealed by whoever, like the state that wants to keep stealing money. But if there's a different circuit and they're in conflict, because people will, you're right, if it's a well-written well-written
The First
opinion, they will
District-
use it as a precedent in another
Right,
circuit.
right.
The First
But
District
you could
Court
get
of
a
Appeals
conflicting one.
decision on videotaping police officers
But that's
has
the
been
First
used
Circuit.
and it's
But-
right here.
But you got to
And
understand
it
how
has
it works.
been used and is the reason
But that-
why the state of New Hampshire did not pass a law.
And what- that's because
there
we're
was
in the First
no
Circuit.
need to have the law because the First Court.
We're in the First
Circuit
Circuit.
and the Glick decision made it clear
We're in the First
that
Circuit.
people have the right to videotape and audio tape officers so long as they are not interfering with what's going on.
And that's the First Circuit. That doesn't mean it's in every circuit. And when you're talking about a Fourth Amendment case, and the court is very lacking in Fourth Amendment, unless it's to take away your rights, like to a car, which this is a problem. This is a
Yeah.
Fourth Amendment search and see. They're actually
Yeah.
forfeiture. It's probably under the 14th Amendment and that too. So, but we're under the First Amendment. But you're bound by both state and federal law. But inside your circuits, there's different, not only different interpretations of laws. There's also different rules how something like, say, a law on your workers' comp. I'm just bringing that up. It's really not it, but it could something federal. And workers' comp is federal, but it's also states. The states can do it themselves to a degree, as long as they don't completely screw you or do something outrageous. But there's actually different, particularly during the Rehnquist court, they refused a duty to make sure that the law was uniform throughout the country. So there are in any law, there's ways how it's implemented. Like you got 60 days to appeal on this. You got a year on this. And in a different district, it'll be different. Sexual harassment law under federal, racial discrimination. You can have different guidelines, which are part of the law. Like, oh, you blew it. Oh, Christ, we found out your DNA evidence that you really didn't rape and kill her. But guess what? It got in a day late. It was 60 days here, and it's 90 days over here. And don't think that's not true. I'm the only one that broke the David Gates case.
I believe
that
it.
Is
Yeah.
true. That is true.
It's so wild because we don't even really think about
You're
this
5 minutes late.
until
You
you
can
get.
literally take your paperwork up, and if you are 5 minutes past the deadline, a minute
it's
past the
gotta be-
deadline,
I have to
they
do a
can
hearing.
absolutely deny it.
I have to do a hearing. I can't get any help because this is New Hampshire. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. It's a type of administrative thing. If the evidence isn't in by the time of the hearing, you're through. It's through. And then but you could start the whole process again. But it's the thing about the states, because we're in a federal, they let states have leeway. That's why, like the police power, they allowed the states to control like guns until it's like outrageous. You're in San Francisco or a place like Chicago, and all hell's breaking loose. Everybody's got a gun, but here you are, a middle class person. No, you can't have a gun here in Detroit. Like somebody like my father who's driving around a Cadillac.
In possession with a shell casing, you can be arrested.
Oh, geez. Michigan was one of those states, and the old,
New
let's not get into it.
Jersey, New York.
But now the Roberts Court decided the Second Amendment. They finally took up the case.
That doesn't. But you're right. It doesn't change it at the state level.
But yeah, because we're in this
in all
federal state system. But almost everybody, that was a scam in the South, and they usually pulled it on. But when I was thinking about what she said about the gun control and race, I was thinking it's probably the black codes I know the black codes of the South went to Germany when they're writing their racial codes. And it probably was the restriction of guns in states like Alabama and that.
Yeah.
And they probably feed into each other.
Yeah.
And so, I'd like to read that book. But
I'll bring it in for you.
it's like you think you've got rights. Like here in New Hampshire, I thought I had a right to free speech, and you find out no, you don't. You have a different.
You have a right to free speech within reason. Within reason.
No, but you have. I have.
You can't yell fire in a crowded building.
In New Hampshire, you have a different level of the right to free speech than in Massachusetts and 24 other states. It's just the way it is.
That's why we end up needing all these lawyers. because it gets so
There's
complicated.
way too many
Well,
lawyers.
Yeah.
It's a self-propagating thing. But this is theft. It's a type of eminent domain.
Yeah. Tom Massengale in the Facebook live chat says, imagine if Hop was stubborn. And then he said,
I give in when it's a reason.
And then
Usually it'll take me about a week.
I think he was being sarcastic. And then he says, is this how he flirts?
He was my treasurer when I was the president of student government at BU.
Yeah.
We're
He
not
knows all
sure
about me.
if that's how he flirts or if it's a medication issue.
My first
or,
no, it's the lack of medication.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, we need to medicate him more.
I need some good dope.
And Fred said, he said duty. He.
I mean pot. That's
Oh,
not
my
something like
goodness.
No, I don't smoke. I actually don't. I'd be better off, I guess.
Just in the interest of balance and fairness.
About pot?
I'm skipping down to the paragraph where it
The only
addresses
pot I have now is right here.
how law enforcement responds to all this. It says law enforcement groups say civil forfeiture is a vital tool to disrupt drug trafficking and other organized crime. But civil libertarians note that there are far too few safeguards for property owners, and that the profit incentive leads police and prosecutors to go just as often after everyday citizens rather than cartel bosses, which is what happened here. New Mexico essentially banned civil asset forfeiture in 2015, but Albuquerque argued the state law didn't apply to its own city codes and continued to seize cars. And we talk a lot, and we were just talking
And that's
about
where we get into preemption.
right. Well, yeah. Well, we were talking about federal law versus state law. Here's an example of state law versus city law.
Which occurs a lot. There's a lot of states that have laws that contradict with local communities, and a lot of people don't even know it because you don't know what your local community, you don't know that. I'll give you a great example, easy example. Boston. You go to Boston with a knife in your pocket. It's greater than 2.5 inches long. You're a felon.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to Plymouth, Massachusetts, 4 inches, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like Detroit. But you got to understand, a city like Manchester or is supposed to, their laws should be congruent with the state.
Yeah.
But it's not litigated and nobody cares.
The difference between the ordinances in Boston and the ordinances in Plymouth, Mass.
Right, San Francisco, when it came to guns, was like, they were like Nazis.
Yeah.
Which is why I like preemptive law. If that's the law at the state level, then that's the law at every other level, because it's absolutely impossible. Well, it's impossible to know.
In a constitutional sense, that's true, but it has to be litigated, and they never litigate it. Manchester does things that aren't congruent. I'm just using the local with, and any city or town with the state, but nobody is going to litigate because of a lack of interest or something.
Right.
Look, think of how many years.
It's not a lack of interest. You know what it is? It's a lack of making money by the lawyers that won't take the cases. That's what it is. If a lawyer thinks they can make a lot of money, they'll take your case. If they don't think they can make enough money, they ain't going to take your case. They don't care.
Oh, that's happened to me.
I only know one in all my years. I think I know one, maybe 2 lawyers that are actually moral and ethically good.
Well, the lawyer has to make a living.
And I served in the legislature where there are way too many lawyers.
By the way, hello to Matt DaCosta, who joins us in the
I should have
Facebook
become
live
a
chat.
lawyer.
Hi, Matt.
I wouldn't be. Well, they
He's
always
a good cooker.
They always said Dave said I'd set a record for contempt of court. They hit you with a contempt of court on a Friday because you can't be Friday afternoon, so you can't get bailed the Monday.
And know how to act in a court of law, and you won't get hit with contempt.
Well, William Kunstler was always getting hit with it. He was the person that he would say to a jury during the 60s, "You have a right to nullify this law."
But
and
that's true.
The judges would
that's
no,
true.
it's not true, but
It's
you
true,
can do it.
And it actually is
But it's
law
not
in
true.
this state. It's law in this state that the jury be instructed on jury nullification.
But see, you have to be careful because when you put stuff out like that, people can get in serious trouble.
That is the law. It was changed.
But
Jury nullification became real, and the first case was a federal case. It was an older man who lived.
How could a state law affect the federal?
It was a state. I'm sorry, I apologize. It was a state case. There was a.
You're not getting you say your stuff.
There was an elderly man who lived in the North Country of New Hampshire, and he made handmade harps. He also was a cannabis user. He was arrested on cannabis charges. He was brought before a jury of his peers.
It depends on the judge.
Though all the evidence proved, no,
it does depend on a judge.
Not in this state. It is the law in this state.
You could see what would happen
in this state, and the law
and that's
in this
why
state
you have
allowed for
a
the
Supreme
jury
Court
for the very first time to be instructed, along with their instructions on how they consider evidence, that they have the right of jury nullification. And that is exactly what happened in that case. It was the first time it had happened.
You show me the transcript because, that's the way you have a Supreme Court because
Matt,
a judge.
Do you not remember this story? It was quite famous. It was the first jury nullification case to go through after the law was enacted in the state of New Hampshire.
But you have to talk to a lawyer because that's why you have a Supreme Court because a judge, they rule on a judge's error and a judge's interpretation.
The law
and a law,
of
no,
the
but a law can be
legislature
thrown
in
out.
New Hampshire
a law can be thrown out. The legislature
that the jury
is not
must be instructed.
But you're talking about the legislature as the arbiter of the law. It's not. The courts are.
The legislature
and that was a
is the
fight
corrector,
in
is
New
the
Hampshire.
setting of the law, and the judges are supposed to administer the law
the
according to
courts
how it is
interpret
written.
the law, and they interpret whether they're
according to
constitutional
legislative
or not.
intent. Legislative intent in this case is
It's
pretty
whatever
clear.
But you're talking about a legislature that was taken over by the Tea Party. But this is but this is true. That's why you have a Supreme Court.
He's in front of a
what
brick
the law
wall.
is.
He's not listening. Law is law.
No, it's not. A legislature.
I challenge you to prove me wrong.
Why is there a Supreme Court then that overturns laws?
The law in the state
Marbury
of New
versus
Hampshire
Madison.
allows for jury nullification to be instructed to the jury. There was a case. The very first one, and the jury nullified the cannabis charges against
Law
the harp
is the
creator,
law is determined
and
by the
he
court.
went home on jury nullification.
And a prosecutor could have
no,
gone
he
after
could
it.
not have, because the law in New Hampshire
The law is adjudicated by
law
the
in
courts.
New Hampshire says that a jury must be instructed about jury nullification.
We'll have a
it doesn't
we'll
give
have
them an
a
option
talk
out.
about this. It's just basic law. That's why you have a Supreme Court. The Supreme Court
It took
Supreme Court can overrule anything of
took
Congress. Isn't that true?
4 to 6 years to
that
get
is.
that law passed. Yeah, but they would have to go and overturn the
No,
New
they
Hampshire
wouldn't.
law.
No, the Supreme Court can overturn any law in New Hampshire.
They would have to go and overturn the law.
Right.
In order to,
That could happen.
And
there
you're not
could
going
be
to
a
be
thing.
able to retry that, man, because that would be a violation of double jeopardy.
Now we go to the Supreme Court. You know, you can be. Let's not talk about double jeopardy. That was Rehnquist too, where you could.
The law is the law. Pay attention.
No,
Read
the law.
RSA,
The law is
read
passed
the
by a
RSA
legislature.
Under the under
So
the
why do we have
judiciary.
judges?
We have judges to administer
Why
the
do we have a
laws of the
Supreme
state
Court? Why do we have a Supreme Court?
to ensure that the laws of the state and the Constitution are
interpret the
administered
law.
appropriately.
Has the
according to
Supreme Court of
legislative
New
intent.
Hampshire ever thrown out a law for being unconstitutional?
I have no idea. I haven't lived that long.
I'm sure they have. They do it all the time.
But there has been absolutely nothing that has fought against this law, and this has now been the law of the land for over 2 years, if not longer.
I'll check up on that.
You go right ahead. Look up the harp creator, the handmade harp creator
gonna
in the
find
North
out
Country, and
people-
you're gonna owe me an ice cream too.
Well, I'll give you an ice cream no matter what for all the other things I've botched up. But I do know something about the law.
And you
And I've
weren't
seen
paying
peop-
attention when that law was passed in the state. I'm not gonna keep
But I
arguing
know
with
I
you.
know about laws, and we're talking about how this
I'm
law.
glad you know about laws. I made
We're
them.
talking about this law. That's
Where's
not
Joel
the law of
when
the
I need
land
him?
yet. The one
I
about
need the I need the moose.
the judge has made a ruling we agree with, but that doesn't mean everybody's going in that circuit.
There's a difference between a judge's ruling and what's in the
And
RSA
if we get
is the
a
laws of the
lawyer
state.
to talk about this, and they would agree with me, would you agree?
I want you to go look up the RSA and read it. Go read the law. I'm not asking you to look up other people's opinions. I'm asking you to actually look up the law. The law changed.
All right. Well, there's a little
Boy.
bit. We're going to run out of show. There's a little bit more to this
Yeah, because
story.
that used to drive
I want to,
Jackson crazy. That's why Andrew Jackson,
Can we
and
turn
Bannon.
down his mic?
Oh my
They
goodness.
should. You should.
Yeah, we should.
You should.
I
would like to
should.
talk about that though, because I believe you should be able to do it. It's just the technical way of doing it.
It says here, city officials offered to give Harjo back her car for $4,000, a typical settlement tactic, but she refused to pay up. The city then returned the car in an attempt to render her lawsuit moot and keep its program intact. But in an opinion issued in March, Judge Browning allowed the case to proceed, warning the city that Harjo had raised plausible claims that the city's profit incentive and hearing process violated her constitutional rights. Shortly after the March opinion was released, Albuquerque officials announced they were ending the city's forfeiture program. Good. But Saturday's decision is still important. 2 other New Mexico local governments continue to flout the reform law and seize vehicles, and almost no state or local police departments have complied with new reporting requirements for forfeiture activities.
Yeah.
they there you
subvert
go.
the law.
Yeah.
They subvert the law. Brady v. Maryland, 1963.
So, wait a minute. No. Washington Post, 2016.
Here.
The New Hampshire House of Representatives voted at a 184 to 145 to pass a bill that would require courts to instruct jurors about jury nullification. The jurors' power to refuse to convict even when they think all the elements of the crime have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. That is now the law of the land in the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah,
And here it is reported in the Washington Post. So, there.
I don't disagree.
That's what you've just spent the last 20 minutes yelling at me about.
No, I just disagreed about it has to work its way through the courts when, like this.
No, it says that the jury has to be instructed about their rights to jury nullification.
And all it takes is a prosecutor not to do it, and then there'd
No,
be an appeal.
they
and the
don't get a
Supreme Court says,
choice.
yes, they do.
No, they don't. Did you not hear a word I just said?
Oh, come on. We're just talking about the cities won't enforce the law.
Right.
Brady
right.
v. Sullivan. Look up. No, Brady.
At the request of a defendant.
Look at Brady v.
Excuse
Maryland,
Me, I want to alert you to the
1963.
fact that the prosecutor has no say.
Sure.
At the
And the
request,
judge doesn't either.
The law says, at the request of the defendant or the defendant's attorney, the court shall instruct the jury as follows. If you have a reasonable doubt as to whether the state has proved any one or more of the elements of the crime charges, you must find the defendant not guilty. However, if you find that the state has proved all the elements of the offensive charged beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. Even if you find the state has proved all the elements of the offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt, you may still find that on the basis upon the facts of the case, a guilty verdict would yield an unjust result, and you may find the defendant not guilty.
I don't know if that.
The actual instructions. All it takes is the defendant's request.
But you're saying
the
that
prosecutor
you're
cannot.
saying that law can never be challenged in any
I'm not
way.
saying a law can always be challenged.
And it,
but
I
this
would.
is the law of the land right now in the
no,
courts.
the law of that's a law passed by New Hampshire.
That is the law of the land in the state of New Hampshire that a defendant has a right to request.
And
if you're smart, you're going to do it.
And that was going to cause an appeal because some person's going to say my lawyer didn't
you know what
do
this
it,
does?
and they'll get kicked up to the courts.
This keeps the terminally ill cancer patient who gets found with more than they should from being able to go in front of
But
a
we're
jury
not talking about
and
the
have
justice
the jury
of it.
look at the situation on the merits of it, and even if all
juries
elements of
still
the
go to the
crime
top.
is there, find a not guilty verdict. No, they cannot. Until this law was passed, if all elements of the crime were proven beyond reasonable doubt, they were bound by law and their
Yes.
oath to find the person
And
guilty.
the District of Columbia was bound by Brady v. Maryland to give the exculpatory evidence that would exonerate Donald Gates, but they never did, and he spent 34 years in jail for a rape he never committed. And things are, I'll just misquote. Well, Hamlet, they say it's more honor in the breach, but the law, everything, the way
how
it
much
works
more
out
clear
for
does it
normal
have to be?
people.
In all.
But
in all, not in some, in all.
Right, and Brady v.
criminal
Sullivan,
proceedings,
Warren
the
Court,
shall.
I mean, it's not
No, I'm
ordered.
reading you the actual statute.
But
in
you're
all
missing the
criminal
point.
proceedings, the court shall permit the defense to inform the jury
Permit
of
the
its
defense.
right.
So they'll
Correct. The defense has the right to inform the jury in their closing arguments about jury nullification.
You're talking about a law, and we're just talking about, because we're talking about this law, how it works its way up through the system. It could be overturned. I'm not denying the justice
Until
of that.
it's overturned, that's the justice
The
in
important,
this land.
the
in this
important
state.
part, the important part of that was it allows the lawyer to do that. When William Kunstler did that, he would be put
Do you
in
know
jail.
why that was started?
No, but I know
It was
it's a lot of
started-
people. We used to.
It was
we were
started.
with Kunstler talking
The reason
about
the
that
jury
back in the
nullification
70s.
the reason the jury nullification even started in the United States
It's always
goes
been
back
around.
goes back to the days of slavery.
No, it
when
goes back
slaves
to
were
1200s in
escaping-
England.
When slaves were escaping to the north, the law was
Yeah, and juries would let
if
them go.
if you became in the custody and you were an escaped slave, the law said you had to
The
return
Fugitive
that
Slave Law,
slave
1850.
back to the South.
Right.
But that meant sending your neighbor to jail. So juries began refusing to find people guilty on the charges of harboring a slave, so they didn't send their neighbors to jail.
Yes,
And that's where
because-
jury nullification really took off in the United States, was during the time of refusing
Jury
to prosecute your
nullification-
neighbor for harboring an escaped slave from the South.
But that's not true because jury nullification goes back to like 800 years. It's part of the Anglo-Saxon system in the common law. Think of Zenger. John Peter Zenger establishes modern law on libel because the jury refused to interpret the law of libel. You know, if the king or his deputy says, you've libeled him, the jury says, yours.
Right.
So that is an ancient thing. Not to you.
what
but
the heck was
jury,
that?
it's part of our system that the jury can say.
Mine
the
would
hell-
cut my hands are
the
doing
hell
over
with
there
you.
in front of a lady, mister.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my goodness! All right, well, we have to start to wrap up because the weekly Dion is going to be coming up next at 6 p.m.
It's a
I did
good
see
law.
I did see the Dions come in for a moment. I saw Peter White come in and out, but
he's being
left again.
interpreted.
Peter White from the morning show.
Probably
with Peter
heard
White and
you.
others.
Translated.
No, I think he heard you and like went,
I know I would if I saw Peter White.
Oh my. All right, if you missed any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. And that's it for now. Tomorrow, I'll share with you the interview that I'll be recording later tonight with Australian rapper Muggsy. So that'll be fun. It probably worked out for the best because that's good for a Friday, do something musical. And all right, thank you both. Thank you to everybody in the Facebook live chat. Didn't get any calls. Oh, wait, no, we did get one call, didn't we?
From
we got
Melania?
two.
Who was it that called earlier?
We got two calls.
Who called? I can't even remember.
The ghost and the angry
What
man,
job?
the angry veteran.
Oh, the angry veteran.
That was me.
That guy.
And you invited me up.
Yes.
Be careful what you
I'm gonna
ask
get
for.
shot on the way home.
Not by me. I don't have any guns.
It wasn't you I'm driving home with. It's
All right.
Matt.
I don't own a gun either. All right.
Love guns.
He's gonna get me.
All right, that's it for now. Talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.